I want us to talk about social issues. A student of religion, student of counseling psychology, student of history, it may appear like a study of social issues is not necessary, it's for sociologists. But we deal with the social issues, social phenomena, so we cannot avoid a study of social issues that affect society. Social issues are subjects or topics that touch on people's welfare. They can be good or bad, or even both good and bad. They are often contemporary and current events. It may also refer, when we talk of current issues, of social issues, it may also refer to long-standing disagreements, unresolved issues, underlying problems that are difficult to solve. In other words, social problems include immigration, climate change, women's rights, gender justice, among others, and that impacts people globally. They provide important research topics that begs to be resolved. They trigger us to be critical and creative. For as we unveil these concerns, we start by being critical and eventually creative and innovative. So essential critical thinking skills are learned from our encounter with the social issues. And although the social issues can be distinguished from economic issues, there are also cases when some issues, such as immigration, appear as simultaneously economic and social. Warfare, as a case study, does not fall into the above categorizations. Hence, warfare is neither economic nor social issue. At the beginning of the Industrial Revolution that began in England in about 1750 to 1760 and lasted between 1820 and 1840, there was the so-called social question. In turn, the social question refers to the social grievances that accompanied the Industrial Revolution. It went hand in hand with the population explosion, as the social problems that accompanied it resulted from the shift from an agrarian society to an urbanized industrial society. The main problems of the social question were pauperism and the existential insecurity of peasants, small clerks, artisans, laborers, and rural servants. In a nutshell, the post-industrial revolution saw or experienced the huge gap between the rich and the poor, the population explosion and the materialistic wealth concern, and was characterized by tensions between the very rich and the poorest within the society. These problems caused strikes and riots. In the United States of America, Thomas Paine, who lived between 1737 to 1809, and who was a French revolutionary who migrated to the American colonies in 1774, wrote political pamphlets and newspaper articles that vouched for the overthrow of the British colonialism. In his Rights of Man and Common Sense, a book that he wrote, Rights of Man and Common Sense, Thomas Paine highlighted the value of individual duty to allow the same rights to others as we allow ourselves. In his view, the failure to grant others similar rights as ourselves amounts to social issue. It becomes a social issue now, no longer personal, but social issue. When you deny others rights, it changes now from personal issue because you have brought others in. Despite his ability to tackle social issues with gusto, okay? You may refer to politics, rights, agrarian justice, labor matters, state pension to all workers, and anti-slavery crusader or abolitionist, commitment to free market and liberty, redemptive futurism, combining utopianism with civic republicanism, belief in the inevitability of scientific and social progress, among other social issues. Thomas Paine had a very troubling religious position. With reference to his own religious beliefs, he wrote in one of his books, The Age of Reason, he says, let me quote, "I believe in one God and no more, and I hope for happiness beyond this life. I do not believe in the creed professed by the Jewish church, by the Roman church, by the Greek church, by the Turkish church, by the Protestant church, nor by any church that I know of. My own mind is my own church. My own mind is my own church. All national institutions of churches, whether Jewish, Christian, or Turkish, appear to me no other than human inventions set up to terrify and enslave mankind and monopolize power and profit." End of quote. These are the ones of Thomas Paine. Now, let me say that the Euro-American issues find their parallels in diverse ways, as in the case of British colonialism that took place in Kenya from 1887 to 1963 following the Berlin Conference of 1885. So I'm saying that the Euro-American issues find their parallels in diverse ways, as in the case of British colonialism, and social issues such as Karabakh. So the coming of colonialism brought social issues such as Karabakh, land appropriation, poor quality education for African populace, police brutality, villagization, as 854 villages were established in central Kenya so as to contain the Mau Mau rebels of 1950s. The villagization itself was like Nazi regime's moment where people were put in concentration camps, and it was nothing but mass prison, mass hunger, mass torture, mass denial of education, mass denial of it. There's a lot of things that happened. All these are social issues, and we said, as we shall note, social issues are not necessarily social problems, because social issues are neutral, but social problems are not neutral. They suggest something negative. But social issues can be both negative or positive. They can be good or bad. Besides that, the British colonialism, like any other form of colonialism, brought suppression of African religion and culture, and in fact confiscation of properties. Yeah, if you had government functionalities, if you disobey or you read a boycott or sit in or just a strike, you are punished collectively, not as an individual. You are punished, all of you. You are as guilty as charged. And that's how it was. It's a social issue and a social problem. So confiscation of properties as a way of punishing the locals who are supporting the freedom fighters, among other social issues, raised now concerns. These social issues raised concern or became problems. The coming of African institutes and churches, some of whom supported the freedom fighters, was part of the counter reactions to the social concerns that went with it. Yeah, if no comment, we can pause and ask, what are the social changes? We can move on and now look at what are the social changes. We have looked at social issues, but then what are social changes? They are interrelated terms. We need to understand them when we are tackling the unit on social problems. So social change has been defined by sociologists as changes in human interactions that seeks to transform cultural and social institutions. They have long-term consequences in a given society, and they include the feminist movement, the quest for the abolition of transatlantic slave trade, the green movement, the LGBTQ rights movement, the Reformation, the Generation Z movement in Kenya of 2024 onwards, and the civil rights movement, among others, the civil rights in America, among others. Various factors are responsible for their occurrences: the cultural factor, the political factor, the environmental factor, the economic factor, the technological factor, the educational factor, the religious factor, the demographic factor, and so on. Such factors often act in concert and results in diverse forms of change. By acting in concert, it means that change factors work together towards the agenda being envisioned, and this can be guided by an agreement or understanding, irrespective of whether the agreement is formal or informal. Acting in concert thus means conscious participation in a joint activity. Now, the main stages in social change include minority influence, conversion, that is similar to internalization, conversion, the snowball effect, or a process that starts from an initial state of small significance and builds upon itself, becoming larger and larger. That is snowball effect. And the social cryptomnesia, which means reappearance of a suppressed or forgotten memory, which is often mistaken for a new experience. So there are times when these social changes that we talk about may be nothing but reappearance of suppressed ideas, suppressed theories, suppressed or forgotten memories that recur and trigger massive social change. And we call it cryptomnesia. That was about memory. Okay. So we have also seen it can also be through snowball effect. Those small little things, you keep annoying people, At one stage, they will erupt like a volcano, and they are going to strike in a very, very bad way, because it is striking like a volcano. It has erupted. Okay? And we noted that social change act in concert. Acting in concert is all about acting as a team, collegiality, togetherness, combining various variables to bring in an impactful change happening in a society. It is nothing, even the English people say, even misfortunes don't come in a single way. They come in a multiple way, in a pluralistic way. So even social change, whether they are drivers somewhere, somehow, these drivers cannot do it without the working with others forces to bring the change. So it's no change that in society comes in a very single way. There must be various drivers that push the agenda forward together as a joint effort. Now, what are social problems? Let's now come to problems themselves, because that's the actual cause on social problems in US and Africa. Of course, we are not talking here as experts, but to bring in that which you can have a platform from in order to know more using us, our position here as a starting point. We are providing the foundation of the study of social problems in US and Africa. Of course, these are continents. Nobody can exhaust them in a forum like this. But as a common unit for everyone, the study of social problems is important, because we may have so many people who have first classes, math degrees, but they even don't know what are social problems. They have not conscious of social problems and social issues and how to go about it. Yeah, they are not enlightened enough. They are not learned enough. So let me talk about social problems quickly. A social problem is largely seen as a societal disruption or disturbance or social order. Not order, social disorder. It's a social disorder. That's why it's a social problem. There's nothing not orderly, not communicating well. There's a disconnect. There is a disconnect somewhere, somehow, on the way. Because it's often used to refer to the social conditions that disrupt or damage society. Such social disruptions include racism, crime, rising sea levels that create new landscape, drawing of new world maps, segmenting Africa further and creating new nations, protests, riots, civil disorder caused by socio-economic issues within the community, interruptions in societal structures, values and interactions, breakdown of social life, and especially in a community setting, and radical transformations, which ushers in newness without necessarily giving psychological preparation to its recipients. Other examples of social problems include unemployment, racism, poverty, and unequal opportunity, and malnutrition. In Africa and other parts of the majority world, negative ethnicity, child abuse and neglect, substance abuse and employment discrimination, and substandard housing are part of these social problems. They are problems. They must, I insist that they must be addressed through our diverse professional dexterity. We've no choice. Everyone has to do something within your own profession, because they affect us all. It's not for certain sociologists, it's for everyone, because they are common issues, common denominators cutting across our human existence. So every professional has to attempt to solve these social problems from his or her own professional perspective. That's the point. Now, moving to the other question that's related to that. What's the difference between social issues and social problems? Now, social issues are problems that impact members of a society, a phenomenon that triggers urgent demands. It triggers urgent demands for a solution. Indeed, not all problems are social issues. To be viewed as a social issue, the problem must have consequences for scores of people in a given society. So what are social issues in Africa? Let me now come narrowing it down now. Social issue, but again, it's still general. You cannot talk of one Africa as a monolithic entity. It can't. It's a broad area, massive area, wide area. So the major issues in Africa, major social issues in Africa include, but not limited to the following: demonstrations and strikes. We know much about it. A lot of these things, we can cite so many examples. Number two, high rates of unemployment. That one is another issue. After independence in 1960s, most African governments assumed things will run on themselves. They did not create job opportunity. They just politicized matters and thought if you switch sweet talk people, all is fine. Now, if in 1980s a country like Kenya had 20 million people, today it has 54. Now, you can look at it and see the percentage of, the proportional percentages of increment of population. And you may ask, how many job opportunities have been created since that time? Which government, which leader or leadership focuses or plans for those people who will come some years to come? We shall be 100 in the next 20 years. A population of 100 million people, a country like Kenya. But who is planning in the current government, apart from what we call transactionalism, as opposed to transforming the system? Transforming is to maintain the status, transacting is to maintain the status quo, but transforming is empowering the society to create more wealth, create more job opportunities, or individuals to open up more businesses. But people are crossing in the resting area, they are crossing down. Rather than opening shops and businesses, they are crossing down because of the environment, working business environment is not addressed. So these are social issues because high rate of unemployment is a recipe, or it gives an opportunity for strikes, demonstrations, distractions, crime, those issues. Somebody has to plan for it. Yes. Now, there is also infant and child morbidity and mortality, and maternal mortality. There is also rapid population growth rates. There is also environmental degradation. All these things, they are there. There is also growing population of refugees across Africa. We will consider it somewhere else. There is also displaced persons. The internally displaced persons, IDPs across Africa, as a result of civil wars and ethnic conflicts. These are social issues facing Africa. We can list more and more. Even poverty itself, it's an issue that may require to be considered as a very major subject, because poverty is a theme on its own that may trouble people. Not me, it's troubling people in Africa in a very bad way. So I think the agenda should be poverty for every system of leadership. How people can be empowered to fight it from the lowest level to highest level possible. Okay, now we may tackle the last section on 6 today on 6 challenges facing black boys and men in America, in USA. I'm assuming there are no comments. If there are no comments, I'll just move on. I'm assuming there are no comments. Or you comment later after we are done with the 6. So let's talk about the 6 key policy areas to systematically address the challenges faced by black American men, mainly and boys, in the United States of America. Everybody wants to go to America, but we also need to know the social problems there. Specifically, we are not talking about women or generally black Americans. We are talking about men in America, black men, African American men, former slaves, or people who migrated there and settled there. They have 6 challenges that I want to talk about. One of it is criminal justice system reform. The other one is education system. The third one is improving employment rates and opportunities. The fourth one is place-based policies. Number 5 is mentorship programs. Number 6 is reparations. Let me talk about it and pause for a lengthier talk. Number 1, criminal justice reform in America, affecting the black boys and men. To truly address the social issues or problems affecting black boys and men in America, there must be significant reform to the criminal justice system. Black men are drastically overrepresented in the prison population, accounting for 32% of the prison population, but only 6% of the overall US population is black men, yet they are 32% in prison in America. They are 5 times more likely to be incarcerated during their lifetimes than white men, and they are more likely to serve longer sentences than white men, on average 19% longer than white men. This reality has multiplicative effects on the life chances of black men. They face barriers in finding employment and housing. Many lose their right to vote, and many lack access to social services, including federal student aid. All of this taken together reduces the economic opportunities available to black men and hinders their role in social and family life. To address these obstacles, criminal justice reform must be made a policy priority. The objective should be first, to reduce the number of black men behind bars, and second, to improve the entry conditions. Third, the religious institution in America must not be seen to be propounding prosperity gospel without addressing such nitty-gritties facing black men in America. Number 2, improving the education system as a very critical social problem and concern. As compared to black women, white men, and white women, black men in America have lower levels of educational attainment. Only about 28% of black men aged between 25 and 29 have a bachelor's degree or higher level degree, while about 30% of black women, over 40% of white women, and nearly 50% of white women do have university degrees. Comparatively, black men have fewer opportunities to receive higher education because those with a record face limited access to federal student loans. I repeat, comparatively, black men have fewer opportunities to receive higher education because those with a felony record, or you are accused of crime somewhere, if you have a file that shows you are a criminal somewhere, you are not forgiven. You just get limited access to federal student loans because of a past injustice, past error you did at adolescence. It follows you like a shadow. It blocks you from a black man. And you know adolescents have behaviors that mature and stop when they grow old. Such errors you did at one stage as a black man, it remains your impediment to your progress. Moreover, many of the service providers within the educational system do not cultivate the full potential of black male students. This includes grading biases, higher suspension and expulsion rates, higher rates of in-school arrests, lack of black male role models within the school, and other forms of overt and covert racism. To improve the economic outcomes for black men, there needs to be a policy response to these educational disparities. First, federal student loans should be made available to those with a felony conviction because it will provide many black males with the opportunity to further their education. Second, the infrastructure of the education system should be improved to better support black male students so that they can achieve their full academic potential. Number 3, improving employment rates and opportunities. On average, black men experience higher unemployment rates, lower labor force participation rates, and lower earnings than their white male counterparts. These trends are not only indicative of lower economic power, but also lower access to quality health care and fewer social connections. One scholar by name, Dr. Roshun Lay, noted that there are about 1.5 million black men missing from social life entirely. To address this, policy should promote better employment opportunities for black men. As a starting place, improving educational outcomes for black boys and men will consequently improve their chances in the labor market. But beyond that, policy should aim to match unemployed black men with gaps in the labor market. Most prominently, there is rapid growth within the so-called HEAL, abbreviated HEAL, that is HEAL sectors, that is health, education, administration, and literacy. Yeah? And a lack of black men in these roles. They have no roles in the HEAL sectors, or very limited role. Policy should respond by providing scholarships and other incentives to encourage more black men to become nurses, become health aides, to become teachers, to become social workers, and other similar professions. Now, the fourth concern among black Americans is race-based policies. Now, in 1927, not 27, it's not yet, in 2017, not 1927, in 2017, 26% of black households lived in high poverty neighborhoods as compared to just 5% of white households. High poverty neighborhoods are typically characterized by poorer quality schools, less access to jobs, social networks, and healthcare, and higher rates of crime, pollution, congestion, and noise. Moreover, the evidence suggests that boys tend to be more sensitive to attainment. Let me repeat. Moreover, evidence suggests that boys tend to be more sensitive to the environment growing up, or to that environment within which they grow up, which often materializes in behavioral issues, lower educational attainment, lower earnings, and more. So if they are in praise-based policies are a factor to boys mainly. Therefore, to address some of these diverse outcomes for black boys and men, there should be greater investment in neighborhoods. Effectively designed and implemented praise-based policies can improve the chances for black men and their families, and ultimately restore communities. Using the opportunity zone model, these policies can provide neighborhoods with greater resources and invest money in areas that need it. But as Dr. Sian Joe noted, they need to better facilitate opportunity structures within the region and not for external actors. Yeah, you don't do it just for developers. No. It should be opportunity for them. It should be facilitated for them to be empowered, so that the place where one comes does not become an impediment. And because boys tend to be imprisoned in a sense by environments within which they live, there should be a way in which we put them in a better environment. We improve those conditions so that it can create a more progressive society. The fifth one out of 6 is mentorship programs. Mentorship programs such as the Mentoring Alliance, led by one American by name Dr. Sian Joe, for black boys and men, have been a vital part of strengthening connections within a community. Providing young black boys with access to black male role model has the potential to benefit them across several areas, including academic performance, mental health, social and emotional well-being, and preventing risky behaviors. While mentorship programs should be promoted through public policy, that is greater investment, the scholars emphasize that the approach must be deliberate. Specifically, Dr. Roshon Lay, I mentioned in Maria, emphasized that mentors must exhibit 4 qualities: positive, academic, accessible, and visible. Black boys should be able to see and touch successful black men as role models. That's mentorship program. Now, where are these role models? Think of Africa today, where liquor has become everything. After frustration, men take liquor more. Yes, after economic meltdown, economic depression, they go to the destructive liquor. And what happens? Family breakages. What else? More students broke, more children leaving school, opting out of school because of that poverty that goes with it. Where are these role models? In some places, men are the endangered species, and now the boy child comes along that line. So it's not just an American problem where black men in America are really endangered, and boys, they are endangered. Even Africa's, there are sections where we can cite case studies and research on such. So Leach and Leaves added that they should be durable because mentors that come and go often do more harm than good. So you need not just a mentor who comes and goes, but a mentor you live with. A mentor who wakes up, brushes his teeth, goes to school, reads a book, writes a book. That's a mentor. Or does productive work. That's a real mentor who teaches by example. It is Mahatma Gandhi who used to say, if you want to preach Satyagraha, live Satyagraha. So if you preach change and so forth, you must be changed yourself. So it's not just preaching it, but living it as mentorship. And finally, Dr. C and Joe mentioned earlier, commented that there must be a shift away from saviorship to sponsorship. It's not servanthood, but transformativeness. So it's not about servant leadership, but transformative leadership. That does not just give a hungry man fish, but shows that hungry man how to fish. That is saviorship. Sponsorship is much better than sponsorship or empowerment or transformation is better than servanthood or saviorship or handouts. They don't help much in the long run. So black men must be willing to sponsor black boys into opportunities. That's jobs, courses, relevant trainings to make a difference in their lives. Now, the last one, reparations. The final policy area suggested during the panel discussion were reparations to be paid to American descendants of slavery. The racial gaps present in wealth, income, housing, value, educational attainment, health status, employment, incarceration rates, and more are all the results of deep racism within the United States, stemming from the egregious act of slavery. Reparations can be used to correct this injustice and to reduce the disparities that remain pervasive in society. During the conversation, Dr. Roshon Lay says that reparations are the only way to deal with racism in America, and that the country must provide restitution for the centuries of the way that systemic racism has operated in their country. While there is momentum on some national level reparation policies, Richard Leaves, another scholar, suggests that reparation payments at the local level are also viable. The policy of reparations, including how they are issued, how they are financed, and at what level, must be explored. Thank you very much. We may stop there briefly and maybe talk about bullying next time.